Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content, and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.
And schools across the country are being introduced to a new curriculum called Critical Race Theory, or CRT. It appears to address racism, but parents across the nation have doubts. One strongly opposed mother told NTD her reasons why.
Critical race theory includes the concept of identifying which groups of people are victims and which are oppressors based on race. One parent wanted to learn more about it.
I don't have any bad feelings or anything against anybody. I just want these 12,000 students to get what they deserve.
Anita Edgarian immigrated to the United States in 1984, and 3 of her children attend the Westchester Area School District in Pennsylvania. She told NTD that her and other parents do their research on CRT, but could still be unclear about it.
And unfortunately, some of these parents are even scared to come forward.
On July 26th, Edgarian shared her story of escaping communism. She compared recent school board meetings with how people were divided based on their stance in the past.
I don't even care what CRT stands for, but dividing families, teachers, and I'm sure your staff members under something that nobody's clear what it is about, it's unfair.
When Edgarian went over her allotted 2 minutes at the podium, the board president intervened.
They're supposed to be going to college.
Anita, you're at time.
No.
Yes, you are.
Because for 12 years you made a mess.
Other speakers went over the allotted time, but did not get escorted from the meeting.
I want to know, are you teaching CRT to our teachers? And if not, why did you say? Why did you say? Why did you say you cannot teach history without CRT? Why did you say that, sir? Why did you say you cannot teach history without CRT? If you're teaching it, own it!
Board President Chris McCune, a Republican, faced backlash after this incident, including a call for resignation.
What is going on? You cannot come deal with this one issue, one parent. You jumped out of your seat. You had her taken out by 2 police officers. I mean, look at me. How much of a threat am I, you know?
According to local media Patch, McCune said that there was a breakdown in meeting procedures in the last meeting. He said, "There's opportunity for improvement all the way around, which includes me." Edgarian is not planning to sue McCune.
Put our differences aside and figure out what they're teaching our kids. Is it something that's going to help us in the long run or not?
She's asking for transparency from the board.
Nearly 6,000 kids hospitalized with COVID in Texas in just 1 week alone. A news outlet made this claim before they realized it was wrong and corrected the number. But their article was already shared numerous times, including by a Washington Post columnist. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
In a Thursday article, the Texas Tribune claimed that during 1 week in August, over 5,800 children were hospitalized with COVID, citing the CDC. But the outlet later issued a correction, saying it wrongly interpreted the information. The Tribune wrote, in actuality, 783 children were admitted to Texas hospitals with COVID-19 between July 1st and August 9th this year. The over 5,800, the outlet explained, was the total number of children hospitalized with the virus since the pandemic began. Before the outlet corrected the error, Washington Post columnist Jennifer Rubin spread the incorrect claim. She has since deleted the tweet. But Steve Krakauer, a media critic, noted that Rubin and some others who spread the claim had not alerted followers to the update. Krakauer wrote on his Friday newsletter, "How does a mistake this massive, this incomprehensible happen?" The media critic added that the Texas Tribune has a COVID database. It shows approximately 10,000 Texans are currently hospitalized with COVID in the entire state. Krakauer said, and yet a reporter, an editor, multiple national journalists didn't stop to consider the 5,800 figure. He alleged that there's only one way this happens. It's when the truth isn't the goal of the reporting, adding, fear-based reporting is how we end up with such massive data and journalistic errors. The Tribune shared the story on social media multiple times, but did not alert readers to the correction. The author of the article did not share the story or the news of the correction. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
This upcoming Monday, New Yorkers will need to show proof of vaccination to eat indoors. But a comptroller candidate is expecting a lot of people to come out and protest the mayor's program. NTD's Miguel Moreno has that story.
Next Monday, Mayor de Blasio's strategy to ramp up vaccinations will reach private businesses. To get a bite or hit the gym, New Yorkers will need to show their COVID vaccination status. But the day de Blasio's policy goes into effect, some New Yorkers are expected to protest the mandate.
Now, this Monday, we're calling on all New Yorkers, not just New York City residents, people from Jersey, people from Pennsylvania, people from upstate, wherever you can go, you got to get here, because if it could happen in New York, it could happen anywhere. And Monday, we're expecting to at least triple the crowd.
John Tobacco is running for city comptroller or chief accountant. He organized a medical freedom rally on August 9th, and he's looking for an even bigger crowd this time.
You know, Bill de Blasio can say anything he wants. The patriots and people, Democrat, Republican, black, white, color, shape, size, sex, we all believe in one thing, that people should have a choice when it comes to their body. And I wonder where Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is with her my body, my choice argument. This is our bodies, our kids, our choices, and the government shouldn't be telling us to put some unproven, unapproved vaccine in our kids' bodies.
We contacted the mayor's office for more details about his strategy, like how it will be enforced, but we haven't heard back. He has said fines will be given starting September. Already, more than 50 businesses have reportedly started asking for proof of vaccination for service. Tobacco says the protest starts at noon on Monday outside City Hall. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
The New York Supreme Court has ruled in favor of journalism watchdog Project Veritas. New York Times employees named in the watchdog's defamation lawsuit can now be called to testify under oath or deposed. Project Veritas's founder, James O'Keefe, just released an update on the case this evening.
We will now be permitted to depose the New York Times. This may be the biggest thing to happen in journalism in 50 years. Well, now you're going to have to face justice. In court, under oath, on video, you are going to be deposed.
A Supreme Court judge wrote Thursday that the New York Times failed to convince the court that the case should be dismissed and also failed to demonstrate justification to halt the case. Project Veritas is suing the paper for claiming the watchdog's Minnesota ballot harvesting video was deceptive and disinformation. Claims Project Veritas says are defamatory. The group is planning to depose Maggie Astor and Tiffany Sue, among other New York Times employees. O'Keefe didn't reveal timeline for the depositions, but says to stay tuned. The Texas Senate passed an election reform bill similar to the one that House Democrats are trying to block, but it wasn't an easy feat. A Democratic senator tried to stop the bill with a 15-hour filibuster.
There being 18 ayes and 11 nays, the bill is finally passed. I also want to take a moment to thank both Democrats and Republicans and the ladies up front who stayed with me all night long for 24 hours.
The bill would tighten up voter roll maintenance, expand early voting hours, and impose harsher penalties for voter fraud. But Democratic Senator Carol Alvarado claims that it suppresses minority voters. That's because the bill limits drive-through voting and 24-hour voting.
Of all Harris County voters who used drive-through voting during early voting, 23% were Hispanic, 22% were African American, and 8% were Asian.
Alvarado began a filibuster from 6 p.m. Wednesday night all the way to 9 a.m. Thursday morning. During these 15 hours, she was not allowed to eat, drink, or sit, according to filibuster rules. Moments after Alvarado finished speaking, the Senate voted on the bill.
This bill, we know it well, and those of us who have read the bill know what's in it. Simple, common sense reforms and expanding early voting hours across the state. Yes, weekend hours as well, making it easier for folks who have to work to vote.
The voting bill now moves to the Texas House, which is currently out of session. Over 50 House Democrats fled the state to prevent passage of a similar voting bill in the House.
An Air Force veteran and high school English teacher organizes Guns Down Friday, an outreach program to support neighborhoods plagued by gun violence. Here are the details.
It's like a war zone. It's like being in the military.
Frustrated by the senseless loss of life in Washington, D.C., Air Force veteran and high school English teacher Joanna Hardy decided to do something about it. She launched Guns Down Friday, an outreach program to support neighborhoods plagued by gun violence, including the one she has lived in since childhood.
I was just so tired of seeing all the violence, seeing the children's lives being lost.
On Fridays, community activist Hardy visits the graves of children who have lost their lives to gun violence, including Davon McNeil, an 11-year-old who was struck in the head by a stray bullet at a 4th of July cookout in Washington, D.C. last year.
I sometimes feel like hopeless. Like sometimes I really feel like I can like bring a child back to life. I just have all types of thoughts.
After visiting the cemetery, she drives her van, adorned with photos of young gun violence victims, through the streets to greet the youth. On a recent Friday, she arrived outside an apartment complex in southeast Washington with water balloons, as kids laughed and scrambled to drench one another. For many, hearing gunshots is all too normal.
Down the street just like 2 hours ago, 3 shots, had to get the book in it.
Just ignore it, don't look out the window because you never know if the bullet coming towards your window.
Like many cities across the U.S., Washington has seen a spike in shooting-related deaths during the pandemic. Homicides were up 19% in D.C. in 2020 compared to 2019, according to the Washington Metropolitan Police Department. In addition to the Friday activities, Hardy said she has taken other initiatives, raising money for shooting victims' gravestones, advocating for more streetlights, and training people how to treat bullet wounds themselves.
The U.S. is directing attention toward Beijing. The CIA is reportedly considering creating a mission center specifically to counter the communist regime. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more.
The U.S. seems poised to take stronger steps to combat threats from Beijing. The CIA is reportedly considering proposals to create a mission center for China. Bloomberg says unnamed sources told him the move is meant to help the U.S. gain greater insight into communist China, the U.S.'s top strategic rival. The proposed mission center would be independent of the CIA, but it would still be able to use the agency's resources. The outlet says sources told them the center would also make it easier to secure resources, including the team's size, funding, and high-level attention for China-related activities. It's reportedly part of a review of the CIA's China capabilities by its director, William Burns. He says China's leadership is adversarial and predatory, and says Beijing's goal is to replace the U.S. as the world's most powerful and influential nation. Burns told NPR the CIA's broader China review is looking at whether to deploy China specialists to global locations, which was part of their approach in the Cold War to counter the Soviet Union. The proposal comes as senior U.S. officials increasingly raise concerns over China's spying ambitions. As FBI Director Christopher Wray said last year, Americans find themselves held over a barrel by the Chinese Communist Party. He referred to Chinese tactics from cyber espionage to threats against Chinese people in the U.S. Critics question the CIA's capabilities in handling China. A 2017 New York Times report alleged China killed or imprisoned more than a dozen CIA sources over 2 years, starting in 2010. And it said Beijing crippled the CIA's intelligence gathering efforts in China. A House Intelligence Committee official reportedly declined a comment, but told Bloomberg they were pleased to see the agency is reviewing its approach to China, and they're looking forward to seeing the results.
Everything that's reported on television isn't always true, but it should be. NTD, the power of truth. Now available 24/7 on television and streaming platforms.